Hey, welcome to another From Grind to Grace episode. And the big question I'm diving into in this episode with a guest again is what is clarity? And what role does clarity play into your grind game or anti-game, I should say? How is it important to be clear on who you are, what you're doing, why you are doing it, what it means in the context of collective, of the world, of your audience, of your marketplace? And when you don't have it or when you lose it, why it affects how you do things and how you operate every day. So for today's conversation and to dive into this question, I have an amazing guest, a guest that I should have met back when I lived in Ireland, but I did not. We only met recently when I'm now in Lithuania,
Yes.
but something is kind of pulling me in that direction anyway. Well, truth to be said, Irishness is part of my identity.
It is certainly.
Anyway, so please meet my dear guest, Jerry
Hello.
Selvaseelan. Yeah, and Jerry is the founder of Logical Retreat, a company based in Ireland, which focuses on helping people who are at life's crossroads achieve clarity and clear direction to their future life path. He has developed a proprietary distilled living framework called the, I don't know how to pronounce this name,
It's
obscenely
obscenely bare living. Yeah.
bare living framework. And this is what attracted me the most. One-page life clarity system, which helps you distill your life priorities, purposes, and personal legacy plan across 58 clarity points onto just one page, so you can make key life decisions with precision and without overwhelm. He's the author of the One-Page Life Clarity book, which is available on logicalretreat.com. So, very welcome, Jerry, on
Thank you
my
so much.
episode, on my podcast, and let's play.
Thank you so much, editor. Lovely to have a conversation with you here.
Very, very, very excited for what we're gonna talk about, which we already kind of started before I pressed
Yes,
record.
we did. Yeah.
Some interesting stuff was happening already. We couldn't stop. So really happy about that. And our conversation, since we got together, it just flows
Yes.
all the time, which is very important as well. And so uh, just to start, just to give the audience more about what you're all about, what you're doing, where you're heading, and maybe even how everything started for you.
Sure. So I was born and I grew up in the southern part of India, a state called Tamil Nadu. And I grew up in a city called Coimbatore. And 20 years back, I came to Ireland to work mainly in the healthcare field. And one of the things I've always been interested is in the psychology and philosophy of life and why we do what we do. So I've read a lot of books over the years, but one thing I kind of noticed is that people, when they are kind of eager to learn, they listen to a lot of podcasts, right, on YouTube and things like that. And they come with a kind of a lot of a sense of, yeah, that thing is very true, and that's an amazing concept. But this point of struggle is they don't know how to apply that into their life, and how to apply that into their current circumstance or situation. So that's why I thought, I need to create something where people get clarity in their life, but they need to have something tangible, something they can hold on to, something they can actually keep in their wallet or their purse, and something which will guide their next big life decision. So that's the way I came up with the concept of one-page life clarity, which is I basically thought of everything I would need to know myself if I wanted clarity for the next 5 years of my life, of what I'm going to do, what I'm going to focus on, what are the things which don't matter. And then I put it all together into a template. And, I also did some user surveys through LinkedIn. Over 300 people kind of participated in that. And they kind of gave me the pain points of where they are stuck in life. And most of the respondents were women, but it was very interesting. So I collated all the feedback, and I was able to map it to the pain point themes. And then I used those themes to create my template. So that's
Wow.
the
So
background of how it happened.
yeah, so it's kind of fascinating when I saw, and that's actually probably was the key driver to pay attention to what you're doing, when I saw the one pager, for clarity. So first of all,
Yeah,
as a marketer, as I said before, it definitely looks very different,
right.
which is so cool. And
Thank
I'm
you.
like, every time I see something like that, I'm like, did this person learn marketing, or did this person just do it because he felt it that way,
Yeah, I wanted it to be a solution for myself first before I could apply it to anyone else life. So that's why I was a student of my own
Mm,
solution first. And that's why I showed you my one pager, right? It's torn in tatters, but I still keep it in my wallet. It's nearly 2 years, it's over 2 years old now, but it guides my decisions,
mhm.
and only when I was sure that it is actually something I can use, I started then using it for my clients.
That's amazing. And I'm just wondering, and I would like to dial it a little bit deeper into that situation in your life, or maybe multiple situations where, so I imagine that, what you created came out from some sort of challenge or struggle, some sort of place where you maybe were confused or lost or overworked or burnout or something like that. Because as my audience are entrepreneurs looking
Yes,
for real freedom. And very
yes,
often they find themselves in a place where they're just grinding,
yeah,
going way too slowly while sacrificing way too much in their life.
true. True. And that's a beautiful word you have and I love the name of the podcast, From Grind to Grace, because I think that shows the transformation which we all actually want, right? We all desire that, but we are all mostly stuck, and especially entrepreneurs are mostly stuck in the grind phase. And sometimes many of us pretend that we are not grinding, but we are.
I think so.
We put on a lovely smiley face and we are like, no, things are all right, but
True.
truly we are grinding. And if we try to define how that would look like for people who are listening to this podcast, grinding would be where you don't feel that what you're doing, and this could be your marketing efforts, this could be your sales process, is in complete authentic alignment with yourself, as a personhood. What would that look like? That would look like, if we kind of go down a bit more, um, that your values and virtues are not aligned to the entrepreneurial efforts you're doing on a day-to-day basis, or the solution you've created for the masses. So that brings
Goosebumps.
it, and it's something many of us can relate, right? How would that look like? It would look like in every day when you're waking up, you don't have that zest for that day of what you're going to do, and it feels more like a burden. rather than something you really, really look forward to. You know, I think as an entrepreneur, whatever solution you created for that pain point you've identified should put that hope and zest within you. That when you're waking up in the morning, you should be like, who am I going to help with my words, with my solution? And how is it going to change their life? When we are authentically aligned to that extent is where our product and a solution does its own marketing. People
Yeah,
will see that. Yeah.
I so love this topic because what I found for myself
Mm,
a while ago is that, and what I see now everywhere is that entrepreneurs get this idea, and I know roughly kind of I have theories of where it's coming from, that whatever they are creating, some sort of solution they're creating to some sort of problem they want to address is somehow
mm,
outside of themselves,
yes.
somehow somewhere there. And I think
So
so,
true.
as a marketer and follower of many gurus and like really passionate marketing student
Yes.
and copywriter, I actually I do know as a fact that, like, I don't know if I see any strategies,
Mm.
marketing strategies that say start with yourself.
Yes. And that's a huge current problem with our current ecosystem in sales and marketing, right? Because, and it's a marketing and sales is a wonderful topic because that applies in every single thing. Like even in our relationships, we are marketing ourselves to another
Yeah.
person, right? So, and we are selling ourselves. So that concept of marketing and sales is infused into every facet of our being, but we need to get it right. So I truly believe like the problem entrepreneurs have or startup founders have who want to get into the field of entrepreneurship, or perhaps there are people listening to this podcast who are already a founder or entrepreneur with employees who've been doing it for 10, 20 years, but still feel it is a grind. And the problem is that they are probably gone straight into step number 3 of marketing and sales, which is get the product which will sell you the best and do these steps in the right way. And they've done it perhaps done it successfully, but yet it wasn't soul centered.
And it was the kind of thing for me. I was getting clients, high ticket clients. I was writing
Yes.
copy for 7-figure earners, and that was okay. And you know what? When I was doing the copy, it's so funny. When I was doing the copy for them, and when they were reading my work, I was like,
Yeah.
how did you know all these things about me? Oh my God, you like,
Yeah.
described my whole life and all that kind of stuff. That was so cool. I was like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow. So this person basically almost like discovered himself or herself through
Yeah.
my work. But now why am I not doing this for me? Like how, what is going on when it
Yeah.
comes to doing it for myself? It's like meh, it's
Yeah.
always like I'm doing it right, but it's like meh, it doesn't feel right,
True.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff
So
all
in
the
that
time.
case, I think you have done the introspection exercise on their behalf, which they skipped, right? And that's
Right.
what's fascinating them because they're like, I should have actually done that, but how did you get to know all these details about me? Which is amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
and I used to say, one of the most rewarding experiences in
yeah.
what I do is helping my clients to fall in love with what they fall back in love with what they
Yes.
are doing.
Which is so important because if they are not completely in love with the solution they have crafted authentically aligned to themselves, it's not sustainable. It won't have the strength to pursue on or linger on far beyond a certain point. And also, it is very difficult to craft a personal legacy of value on a product or a solution of that nature.
Exactly, and you're so on point. Like, I mean, it's very, very hard to convey value if it's
Mm,
not coming from your heart with the
yes.
right energy. We can, frameworks only take you so far.
Yes.
you know, and
Absolutely.
yes, but it's not those words, it's not that energy,
Mm,
it's not that phrasing. Uh, total,
it's
you're
so
totally
true.
right. So back to your story, if you don't mind, I'm really, really interested in that situation in your life where that actually said, whether it was some sort of a message from somewhere or something was going on in your life that actually said, you know what, you gotta do this and you gotta get clarity because you are in this situation for a while now. It's going nowhere or whatever it looked like for
Yeah,
you. Can you help me some
sure. Yeah. So
understand?
sure. For me, my kind of realization is now I'm in my midlife, right? And one of my realizations was life is very short, right? There is a brevity to life. So I didn't want to just go with the flow of just a 9 to 5 job. You kind of tick those boxes, the checklists of this is what you do in your life, and then you pay your mortgage, you pay your bills, and then you retire, and then you die. For me, it was getting to a point where, that rat race of just ticking those checklists was not fulfilling enough. So, and I also was kind of eager that I kind of create something from within myself, which I can leave behind for people to use in their life and make themselves better. So I was thinking, how do I do that? Because at that point, and this is going back about 3 years back, I didn't know how to start. I didn't know where to start or how, I didn't know any of these sales or marketing principles or any of these language at all. Um, what I thought was then, I should actually find a pain point which my lived experience is is kind of best suited to solve that pain point, but possibly better than another person. So I then started collating the pain points from my colleagues who I was working with. I was just asking them, so where are you stuck in life, and what would you like someone to do if they could help you at this point? Now, different of my colleagues gave different reasons. Some were going through divorces,
That's a very good
you know.
question, though. It's
Yeah.
instead of what do you want to do or something, which is
Mm.
very abstract,
Yes.
you put it sort of backwards in reverse, what would you like someone to do? So kind of moves the heaviness away or something like that.
Exactly. It leaves it
Yeah,
open-ended, right? And
yeah.
it was more like I wanted to know if someone could help them in that situation in their life. And many of them were going through either it was a life event or a crisis or a transition, if I could mention. And that there was a third grouping of people for whom life was just meh. It was just lukewarm, right? They were
Mhm.
just going through the drill of life, and they just saw it was just, if I could ask them, they were just like, yeah, life is okay. Just it's just okay. I just don't know anything about um there's no hope or zest to anything. So, and the people who did point the life events, some of them were going through bereavement and loss. Some had lost a loved one, and they wanted uh, they didn't know how to get unstuck from the point of grief and loss. Um, some had a huge transition point. Some had moved countries. Some had a relationship end. So there were many people in different points of transition. And like we could call it crossroads of life, right? So when I asked them, what would you look like if someone could come in at this stage of your life to help you? They said very simply, I would just like someone to show me what the next few years would look like and how I can better it. It was something as simple like that. So I was thinking, so if that's what they want, what they're actually saying is that they want clarity. And if I drill it down a bit more, they want clarity and purpose. So I asked them then, what has been a stumbling block for you in achieving that? And when I kind of looked into their own life and what they were telling me, it appeared that their plate was already oversubscribed over the last several decades, and this is from a lot of the social peer pressure people have had, right? Like, and again, it comes to the roles and commitments we subscribe to over the years. From our early 20s, we are told, we need to be part of this group, we need to be a mother, we need to be um, a sister, we need to be an employee, we need have yes, several roles we need to tick. And people have unknowingly and sometimes subconsciously hit subscribe. And now they're finding themselves in their perhaps 40s, 50s, or even 60s, that they're kind of laden with all the subscriptions and the expectations of others because they've subscribed into it, and which is kind of drained out and sucked away on their natural flow of which was actually innate strengths within them. So what I then understood is that the problem is that people were doing things which firstly were not completely aligned to their own core being, and secondly, they're overladen with unwanted, unnecessary things. So then I kind of understood that the way I could help them is firstly show people how to filter down their life priorities and purposes, right? And bring it to a handful of core essentials, because that is so important for the journey of clarity, until we are able to distill and kind of unsubscribe, clean it out, nearly like a slate, empty it all out, and then put back on it only a few handful of things that matter. So that's what I call it. It's My concept is basically essentialism, but on a radical front. So it is about a radical pursuit of a few chosen things, but the concept of one-page life clarity, right? So instead of focusing on 10, 20 things and trying to achieve everything in life and having a very diluted impact, we only focus on just 2 or 3 very powerful things and we go all in on it. And my kind of concept and philosophy is that because we are so then obsessed with those few things, because they are so aligned to ourselves, it's going to be so much more powerful.
Yeah, and something was surfacing for me as I was listening to you. So as human beings, obviously, we want to belong to the tribe. This comes from
Yes.
our survival instinct. However, somehow we try to belong using things, those surface like
Yeah.
self-image creation things, rather than what's coming from within. Somehow, I think a lot of people don't value what's coming from within. They
Right.
don't know, like, our goal is to contribute, and they think that by doing what everyone else is doing,
Yes.
that's where their best contribution is,
True.
instead
True.
of what's coming from within. They don't
Absolutely.
believe that they're gonna contribute very well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and a few moments back I was saying, right? So that's the step number 3. People are immediately led to step number 3, whereas step number 1 and 2, in my view, is that self-discovery is step number 1, right? So first, people need to know
Yeah.
yourself in and out, and you have to take time to do that, because that's your cornerstone. That's your foundation upon which you are then able to then look at step number 2, which is, okay, I got this is me, this is my values, this is my virtues, this is my personal identity I want to craft, and these are my gifts, and that's all part of the self-discovery process. And then step number 2 is you are then looking at what are the problems out there which I'm best positioned to solve. And then what is the tribe or the community out there which I'm going to focus on, because we can't serve everybody, right? Our skills are not meant for the entire world. It's for a certain cohort of people
Yes.
facing a certain problem, right? And that's step number two. Step number three is the piece on where people go straight in, which is giving the message or the solution to the world, which I think is too premature if you haven't done that introspection of
Mm,
knowing who you truly are.
agree. I agree. It's so beautiful. You know, I think everything, and I was listening to this book called The Courage of Being Disliked. And like so many things in that book, but what really was in the center of the whole thing was contribution and us being part of the community, the global community,
Yes.
the world, the collective.
Mm,
And we do have the innate need to contribute.
yes.
And so, you know, it'd be nice to see our business, right, as contribution to
So
the
true.
world rather than just like creating an income or,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
because again, and it's so true, because if that noble contribution piece is missing, right? And we do see the marketers and salespeople online who do make a successful living, but they are like perhaps they're getting like a product which is already there in the market and then just rebranding their own, putting their own name on it and putting Facebook ads, and perhaps they make even millions with that. But there's no authenticity to it. There's
And
no
they burn out
contribution.
eventually, I believe. You know, we see that everywhere, right?
Yeah, completely. Because they know what they're doing is pointless. They know that they are just kind of ticking the box. And in a way, it's duping the audience because what they're serving the audience is not authentic. They don't believe in it themselves. People buy it because they are told a certain message and they are duped into doing that. And that doesn't mean because you get the sales that you're successful, you know?
And that's where I think this misalignment with who you are, with your purpose, with your soul, with your essence, you
Mm,
know, I think that's what causes the grind because you
yes.
need to compensate the void
Yes.
by doing all these strategies and posting every day and being omnipresent and
Yeah.
you know the
And it becomes painful, because then you're kind of waking up in the morning thinking, oh gosh, okay, let me go to my task list. I need to post 5 times today. What do I even write? Because nothing is there inside. It's empty, right? So
I
they need to
know,
then, where do you generate it from? From an
I
point
know,
of
right?
emptiness.
Exactly. The generation
Yeah,
thing is not happening automatically when you are connected to your passion and your purpose. There is everlasting generation of
absolutely.
ideas, energy, creativity, you know,
Yes,
happening. Like
absolutely.
it's such an amazing place to be when you connect, when you actually find that place, that infinite
It's an
generation.
infinite resource. You're absolutely right. And it'll keep generating by itself, because
Yeah.
when you're kind of you crafted your solution based on the real problems of people, the people will then feed you the marketing message of the problems you have solved. So
Mm.
what I mean by that is clients you've helped with, they're going to come back to you, even in either form of testimonials or feedback, and say, you know what, that solution you actually gave me solved this other problem, which you haven't even said in your marketing message. And then you're thinking, oh, I didn't even know it had the capacity to do that, So it's going to self-generate and it's going to feed that cycle by itself when it's
So,
done authentically.
totally. And you know, now that I steering everything in, you know, doing things differently from the place of flow, from the place of
Mm,
grace, you know, those kind of things. And I look at the things that I used to like before, the
yeah.
posts, the concepts, and look, like we need that stuff too, right? You know, some
Yes.
shape, like I like this analogy of the flow. Like we want to be in the flow, we want to be like river flowing, but when we need to drink, when we need
Yes,
to have a drink, we need to scoop and give it some shape, a scoop or
absolutely.
cup, and
Yeah,
so to basically channel it into something
you're right.
tangible and that kind of
Exactly.
stuff.
Something of value. Yes.
Yeah, and so these things, like even like social media post calendar for the whole year
Mm,
or
mm,
whatever, somebody created a plan for you and you just, there's no soul in it.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
was never able to, I tried, I thought it was gonna
Mm,
make my life easier, having like day by day kind of what I'm posting, Monday
yeah.
inspiration, Tuesday
Mm, mm,
tip, Wednesday, what-
Value posts and things like that.
and,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
then you sit and you then manufacture, okay, so for Tuesday tip, what can I,
Mm,
kind
yes.
of
Yeah. Yeah. You're
like,
struggling, isn't it then? Yeah.
and it didn't feel right, and it
No.
caused way more work, and I was spending hours probably just creating a little post
Yeah.
and
You're so right. No, that is so true. And that's exactly what happens. Whereas grace, when you kind of, you kind of beautifully gave the name of the podcast, Grind to Grace. Grace would look completely different, right? Grace is where you're at a point as a marketer and as an entrepreneur where you don't have to push things into people or force people to hear your message and convince them. You know, as you talk, as you talk about what you've created, people will be drawn to it because they'll be relating not only to the pain point within their life which you can solve, but they'll be relating to that natural flow of your conversation, that it's not kind of put into like a template of words. It's not kind of crafted in a salesy way. It's
um
just coming from you.
and
It's
I
just your
think it's
normal words.
because that then has very, very, very deep meaning to you,
Mm,
to yourself,
yes.
because
Yes.
if it does not have a deep meaning to you, who's gonna
Absolutely. Yeah,
find it meaningful?
exactly. And so that's the main question then. Are we able to employ that in our own life? And has it been of value for us, Or are we pushing something then which we've created, which wasn't actually built on the pain points of others, and which we couldn't find any value, but we're just doing it just to get some financial points? And people usually find that out. And if not now, later. Um,
And it's not even logical. People, I think people sometimes think, entrepreneurs think, when we say, people don't resonate, people don't find
mm,
it. It's not like they sit there, look at your post or
yeah.
piece of content and they think.
Mm,
No, it's instant. It's
yes.
emotional. It's instant.
It's a click, right?
It's yeah, yeah. It's
Something clicks
logical,
within them. Yeah, yeah. So
right?
because people maybe just listening to even an hour of a podcast, and nothing may relate to them apart from just one sentence at point number 44, and then everything changes, because you struck that nerve point. You
Yes,
completely hit it. And that only comes from a point of authenticity, you know.
yes,
Um,
and they wait. They listen to that point because there is something in the rest of it. There's
yeah,
something that keeps them, aware, keeps them
yes,
involved, keeps them engaged with your message through some energy exchange or, something like that. And
true. Yeah,
that's when you start feeling what you're doing instead of thinking really hard about what should I do now? Where am I heading? What's the next strategy?
yeah,
Then first of all, it's very meaningful. Secondly, that's what pulls you out of the grind. And even like I notice now a lot of my work actually happens when I'm actually not apparently, like I'm not even working per se.
yeah, yeah. you're just chill and you're thinking about something else, and then that's where your most creative
Yeah,
points
and then
come in. Yeah.
sometimes I don't even need to write it down.
Mm,
Sometimes all it takes, when I do go back to my workplace, I just need to write it down. And
yes.
and put it on somewhere or whatever, instead of
Yeah.
just let
Yeah.
me when we start, okay, I need to post something today, right?
Mm,
And I open, say, Facebook, and I start even just talking about it
yeah.
sounds very heavy,
It
right?
sounds painful, actually. I know, you're right. You're right. Yeah, that's so true, because that is the reality, isn't it? But even talking about using kind of um, sales language, right? One of the problems of pursuing the grind mechanism is, even if you successfully sell something, from a non-authentic point, you're going to get a lot of refunds or claims for refunds, because people will see, even after they buy your product, they'll see that this is not crafted with any heart or soul in it.
Mm,
You're going to have a very high refund rate, because people
very
will
true.
even after they access your product, will see, okay, this is completely not something which is going to actually help me in the long run. It is so superficially done. It is just done to just get some income for the seller, and they see through it. So it's not going to help you in the long term at all.
Yeah, and it's not gonna be fun. You're not gonna enjoy it, and you're gonna burn out. I noticed as well that sometimes I buy stuff just because I click with the person. And
Mm,
I don't really care.
you're
Just
right.
want to be in their world, right? I
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
really care. Like I'll check it out later if it's a course or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I'll check it out. But at some point I know I'm gonna need it because of this particular person.
Yes. You connect to the person and you want something which they've created, right? And why do we want that? Because we see them as someone who's authentic, who's actually
Mm.
done the work, who's not kind of just copy pasting things.
And also just from the marketing point of view, what
Mm,
is fascinating to me as well is that one of the biggest things in marketing is differentiation, right?
yes.
Like, of course, like, I mean, why would people buy more of the same,
Mm,
right? Like
very
it's
true.
right.
Very true.
Now, the problem with that is that most people try to approach that through thinking it out.
Mm,
And where if you are being your authentic you with your
mm,
truth, with your integrity,
mm,
with your energy, you
mm.
are automatically authentic
Yes.
and different.
True.
Automatically. That's the main differentiator for you. Now, I know people they have fears around. It's like,
Yeah.
who's gonna be interested in me and whatever. But I'm seeing that if you are honest and true to your message and to
Mm,
what you're saying, and you are talking about some problem that you maybe have or had and overcame, there are definitely people in the world. You're not alone with your problem.
completely. Yeah.
Problems are universal pretty much.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's I think you hit the nail on the head, editor. So when we are kind of so aligned with our own self and our own strengths, our weaknesses, uh, we are then able to craft, and the niche topic, right, is a huge thing in marketing and sales. Which niche do I go in?
Mm,
The niche doesn't matter if it is already an over subscribed niche, because as you said, you're bringing yourself into it, and your kind of perspective, if it is crafted genuinely, and the keyword being genuinely, and you're not kind of just copy pasting different pieces from different people and putting together a product, as long as it's crafted based on you, that authenticity comes alive, and you may be in a kind of a niche which has already got thousands of people selling the same product. But as you just said 3 minutes back, there are some people who, when you see on Facebook or on social media, you feel like, I want to buy something which they're selling, right? And it's got nothing to do with the niche of what they are in. They could be the same person next to them, could be posting exactly the same niche, but you are not attracted to them at all. You felt
Yeah,
led to this person.
exactly. It's the case of who you're attracting. And so that's one thing that I mentioned. But the other thing, and I was actually doing some small coaching
Mm,
uh, yesterday, because the group of people I was, some of them I was with, some of them have businesses.
right.
So like people think like there's this competition thing. I
Mm,
like, well, in fairness, I don't believe in competition anymore.
yes.
And I'm aware that there are so many different solutions to the same problem,
Mm,
but that doesn't mean I need to get all of those solutions and follow all of those solutions. And I have followed and bought from people just because out of, they are saying the same thing, or, giving a solution to the same problem,
yes.
but they, for example, said an F word. They're
Mm,
saying in their messaging, they're using, say, stronger language, F words. And that's not to say that but why not?
yeah.
I'm going to use these words or whatever.
Mm,
For me, what it usually means to me personally is that this person is actually has an opinion, knows what she or he is talking about,
yeah.
is bold,
Mm-hmm.
is a leader, and is not afraid to stand out, even with their word choice and, those kind of things. And that
Yeah.
was the whole reason why I follow them, you
Absolutely.
know.
Because it takes courage to stand out, right? Because you're going to get trolls and you're going to get people who, you know, pass comments on whatever you do. And you do need that courage to put your neck out to the masses. So very true point there. I do think when people have nailed down what is truly within their own alignment to themselves and the pain point they want to craft a solution for, I think the next step for people would be to create a framework and a system of their own. It needs to be something which is brandable, which is coming from you, which is not just copied from someone else. And that's why that framework is very important, because a framework or a system guides people through steps. And people, as humans, we all like a journey to get to the point of transition. So even as you said in the podcast, from grind to grace. So what would be the framework of a person? How many steps would that look like? And what would that milestone of moving from grind to grace look like? And that's just an example, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's very important that people do that. And it's very fascinating, editor, that I find even even now, and perhaps even successful entrepreneurs, many still don't have have that at all. So they haven't taken the time to craft that own system from themselves. And I think it's very important that when you're in that stage 3, that you're not just focusing on the sales bit and then looking at your cash flow. Yes, that is important, but as we spoke, it what have you crafted of your own accord? Because if we are talking about personal legacy, and I think as an entrepreneur who is soul led, personal legacy comes into play, right? Because it's not just about what income we make till our time on earth is done. We want to leave something of value, and that value point can only be given to the people when we have something which we can give the world, which will have legs of its own, which will keep contributing even when we are gone.
Very true, very true. The one point I want to make in this context as well is that, a lot of people think, and I was one of those people, I need to create something of my own, but I need to sort of create it like from like, not like it needs to completely be
Mm.
my stuff, whereas
Yeah.
like I want to bring in this clarity for people
Mm.
that creating your own doesn't necessarily, it actually, it doesn't mean at all creating it from scratch. It usually is combining, it's filtering through what you're
Mm.
learning from others. We
Yeah.
don't live in isolation.
Mm.
And I was almost, at times, I was almost agonizing having this wrong idea that it
Mm.
needs to completely be just my stuff from
Yeah.
scratch. Well, it doesn't happen.
It
There's
won't be
nothing under the
completely. Yeah.
sun.
There will be parts which others are doing as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
No,
I think
that's true.
that's one of those things that a lot of, and which brings me to the other point, is that I used to, so when I started on this entrepreneurship journey,
Mm.
I I got into marketing straight away. It's fascinating. I love it. The psychology behind it, this kind of things. And I was learning these strategies and methods and everything, and I used to see people time to time who just come in and they do their thing. I'm still on the learning curve, and
Mm.
I'm learning all this marketing. And somebody who has nothing to do with any marketing and sales, they come, they start, and they fly.
Yes.
Like, what is going on? Right? What is going on? Like, and I see I could point on various things that they do
Mm.
incorrectly in their marketing, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But they are the one flying. I'm the one still learning. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. But,
So they were coming already.
yes.
None of those people, by the
Mm.
way, who
Mm.
I observed, um, were marketers. They came
Mm.
there, whatever other things, like
Yeah.
whatever health related,
Mm. Mm.
relationship
Mm.
related, something else,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And they just did their thing authentically,
Mm.
apparently.
They
So
probably don't
marketing
even know the
is
principles
so
of, yeah.
secondary.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's so important, right? And that's a lovely example you gave there of some people they seem to take off, and
Mm,
they haven't gone through any conference on marketing and sales, like a 3-day conference or anything of that sort.
exactly. Yeah.
But they don't have to, because they are already in that grace phase, as you said,
They are
isn't it?
driven by that
It's
knowingness.
it's crafted.
Oops.
Mm,
You're breaking up a little bit. I don't know
so
if it's me
true,
or you.
so true.
Mhm.
Okay,
Oh, hopefully you're
am
coming back.
I am I back now?
I can
Okay,
hear you
um,
perfectly. Your
I think
video is
the
frozen for
internet
me.
connection just dropped for a little while.
Maybe you'll be back. I can hear your voice, but video is frozen, but
Can
maybe
you hear me?
I can hear you,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Would you like
Well,
me to? Okay. Would you like me to leave and come back?
um, yeah,
Would you
let's
like me to
try
leave the
that.
meeting and come back?
Let's try that. Oh, you're back? You're back?
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, you're
I'm
back.
back. Okay. Okay.
Cool.
That's fine. Okay. Good. Good. That's good.
Yeah, that's okay. These things happen.
Sorry
And
for that. I think the internet dropped a little bit.
yeah, that's fine. We are playing, as I said, and that's my game now. And I also, all these things, like even these tech little issues, is just part of the whole thing. Like these things happen
Yeah,
everywhere in life, everywhere,
that's
and
real
that's
life.
okay.
Yep,
You know,
very true.
I remember when I was doing a little story, I was helping, and I still, that's what I do now, help people put live workshops to
Mm-hmm.
sell their stuff,
Yep.
together. And the very first client, I remember the very, very, very first And I used to act as an MC, you know, sort of facilitate with the event, you know, work with engagement, engage the audience and things like that. And I remember very first client, very first event with her when we needed to start the event, the masterclass, I could not join on my laptop. That day,
Right.
Zoom was running some massive upgrade, apparently,
Mm.
and I could not join and it needs to start,
Oh
and
my.
people are joining, the audience is
Yeah,
joining,
yeah.
and you know, and I can't come on Zoom, you know. And then I like, okay, let me try to join on my phone. And I did, and I
Right.
could join, but like for me as an MC, I needed to see the chat, what people were chatting,
Yeah.
and those kind of things, you know, need to be way more involved, you know.
And it's
But
difficult on the phone. Yeah.
right. I could not see the comments, like, you know, on the
Mm.
phone,
I
it's a
know.
little
It's very
awkward,
small. Yeah.
and yeah. So anyway, so for 4 hours, I was in that event on my phone, and we did manage to make it into a play, like in the, you know, we turned it into a conversation between me and my client, who was the star of the
Yeah.
event. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, we ask a question, and I'm like, are they commenting? What are they saying in the
Mm.
chat? You know, those kind
Mm.
of things, you know. So
Yeah.
we played
So
around,
just a
and it was,
natural flow there, isn't
yeah,
it?
it felt cool for us, and it also felt more playful for the audience as
Mm.
well. We relaxed into it, and the audience was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's look what they are doing great, even with these technical issues," you know.
Mm.
So
So true. So true.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think, like even using that example, right? So if we are kind of thinking about making a video of our solution, right? So we don't necessarily need to sit with a script and read out exactly, our 5-minute script every once a week. As you said, that natural flow, how that would look like is, let's say we are driving in the car and we get a thought of, what, actually there is another slant to this, solution or what I've come up with. You can just put your mobile phone on, and as you're driving, hit record and just talk about it, and when you go home and you upload that. Audio doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be on a perfect microphone. People don't care about all of those things. People are looking for, you know, where did this person come up with this idea? Is he just reading off a sales script to me? Is he just trying to just ensnare me to make a purchase? Or is this something which is truly coming from their heart? And that's the important piece. So I think sometimes we get over caught up with our background or props, and is the lighting right? Is the audio good? Do I have all the equipment and all of those things? And yes, sometimes it can help to have all of those things, but it's not necessary at all.
yeah, which reminds me of which is a conclusion to what we just said beautifully. Reminds me of that quote I heard somewhere, you know, this is not, don't look at me, walk with me, you know.
Yes,
So it's not about really, it's not about me, it's about you, it's about us, it's about what we are doing together, you
it's
know.
a
So
journey, right?
message with energy is
Mm,
the most important thing.
so
And
true.
everything else, I see all these you know, these tools, and I believe there's place and time for
There is, yeah.
video editing and all those
Mm,
intros in the podcast and all those
mm,
kind of things, and that's all cool, and maybe
yeah,
eventually I will be doing those things when I have done other things and
yeah,
I have time and I feel inspired,
yeah.
you know, but that's really not the
It's
point,
not
right?
essential. No, no, no.
Yeah.
It's not essential for everyday broadcasts and messaging, That's not what people are looking for at all, Videos, people are not looking, why didn't he put an intro in it? Or why didn't she actually have a slideshow when she was talking? People don't care about those things at all. They're just listening to, in my situation at my life, does is what they're talking about. Can I apply it? And can I better my life? Because people are only listening, they're not even listening to you. They're listening from their life view,
So
Is it
true.
something which can help me or not? So if our messaging is not relating to that, and if we are kind of coming from our point of view or our perspective that this is a solution for you, it's not never going to reach the audience because they are not listening from that perspective.
So, so true. So I'm looking at a time already, and I could be talking about this. It's just a conversation is flowing, and
Yeah,
I'm just loving it. I could be sitting here for many
I'm
hours.
loving it
Just
too.
need to make a coffee and just we could keep going. Um, but I'm kind of staring towards wrapping up.
Sure.
Um, uh, so towards the end, I like asking for maybe if people are finding themselves in the grind, and with your angle to it, if they're finding in the place where they lack clarity around their purpose, around their life, what could be one, two, or three maybe easy steps where they could start, like practical
Yeah.
steps where they could start to come out of that place?
Yeah. So I think the self-discovery piece is very important, right? So how does that look like? First, you need to know your values. What is values? Values is what are your core innate beliefs or principles which you believe in, which is completely aligned to you alone. So that would be your values. So either it is, your value is authenticity. Your values could be respect. Your values could be different things of that nature. Virtues, on the other hand, is our behaviors which align to the principles we have identified as values. So how does a virtue look like? Is the behavior, how we behave based on our values, is our virtues. So um, those two core things, I think, are very fundamental. Another third thing I would suggest is personal identity. You may have a personal identity of many things. You could be a partner, you could be a mother, you could be a sister for someone, you could be an employee, you could be so many things. But you need to identify what is that identity you want to aspire to. What do you want? And that could be a mentor, and that could be a kind of a counselor for someone in a certain point. um, what is that identity you're seeking towards? And I think that's very important because once I've identified your values, your virtues, your personal identity, which you're aspiring to, then you're in good stand to look at your innate skills and your gifts. Um, I call it power ballads. Power ballads are something which is a term I coined up, which is where, our talents and our skills, we need to identify those talents and skills which give us a lightness in our spirit when we actually act on them. So, and that can be different for different people, right? So for some people who naturally have a affinity for counseling people in times of distress,
Mhm.
their power ballad of sort is that mentoring into another person and alleviating their pain. So that is their power ballad. So those would be kind of some of the core steps. Apart from that, I would suggest people look, once you've kind of done those introspection pieces, also try to find your personality type. There is a good kind of a tool called Myers-Briggs personality inventory, and that helps people. And there are free websites where you can go and find your personality type, and that'll help you to find your unique strengths and your weaknesses as well. And that'll help in your self-discovery process. Once you've done that self-discovery process is where then you can then go on to the next step, which is step number 2 in my piece, which is that looking for what pain point can I solve through my experiences, my lived experiences? What is it uniquely positioned to solve that one pain point? And don't go completely universal. Try to find that one thing which people are stuck at, and how your kind of unique skills and your kind of values, your virtues, how do they align and come into one place to solve that pain point? And that pain point then becomes your vision, because now
Mm,
you have a solution you have crafted authentically to solve that one pain point for one piece of the population who we call a tribe or an audience. And then our messaging can be so effortless because now you're so clear about, okay, this is the pain point I can solve, but I can do it so well. I can do it effortlessly, and I can do it so well, and I can do it again and again and again till the
mm,
last day of my life. And that becomes your personal life vision. So I would say once you've done all of these bits and then you crafted your own life vision, which is your solution, then you go on to, as we spoke about earlier in our interview, about that creating that system, which is your own, which is possibly again pieces, bits and pieces from different value points from different philosophers and mentors, but then you crafted it into a system which people can, go from step 1 to step 10, apply it in their life and get a result.
mhm.
So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, so much sense, and that actually sounds very similar to what I'm doing,
Lovely.
well, for different purposes, for different
Yes.
problems. So really, really cool. And so then I'll ask you the last question.
Sure.
After I want to ask you where people can find you. What's the
Okay.
best place?
Okay. I have a website called logicalretreat.com. And so that's the best place to find me. Um, if you're interested, if people are interested, there is a ebook which you can get and that'll kind of, it's 450 pages long. It kind of maps out my entire system of one-page life clarity, how people can get to that point of clarity. I also have other kind of resources, as in like audiobooks, video courses, but also a private coaching program which people can access. But it all starts with the website.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last one is, and you kind of touched on it, but because my podcast is called From Grind to Grace, when you hear that,
Yes.
what comes to your mind and what it means to you?
What it means to me is that people are very much kind of consumed with success in terms of what we've heard from others, right? And success for people can be just financial, can be just a social kind of a recognition, but they could be doing it from a point of stress, from a point of anxiety, from a point of nearly it's a lack of flow is the way I would say it, so, and that's the grind for me conveys a point of friction, so there is no
Yeah.
flow in it. And what is causing that friction is what needs to be thought about, so if you
Yes.
have any of those points where you're waking up in the morning and you're kind of thinking, I have these 10 things to do to convey my message to the audience, but I just am not looking forward to it. If you
Mm,
have that feel that you're not looking forward to it at all, there's possibly a friction, and that is possibly a grind point. And what editor has said through this podcast of moving away from that is something I would recommend. How do you move away from that and go into that flow state where you're based on authenticity? Your message is actually from within. It is not crafted from different templates or scripts. And that becomes a point of grace, and that is sustainable. And that is something which you'll actually enjoy doing. And that'll actually benefit people in the long term.
Yes, love this. Love this. Love this. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Jerry.
editor, for
So
having me.
amazing to have you and amazing to be chatting about these very meaningful things.
Thank you so much.
You know, so, I want my listener to hear stuff like this more and more and more and more. I think this is where people can finally start building or having a business that makes them free
Yes.
instead of, because most of us do it to create freedom.
Yes.
And
But then
most
we
of
find that we come
most
back
of
to the
us,
cycle of grind again.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I hope to be talking with you at some point again.
Yes.
I think you have so much more to share.
Thank
So
you so much.
yeah, and thanks for your time. Thanks for your insights and wisdom and sharing your
Thank you.
experience. And bye for now. And for the listener as well, hope that was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, please share, and tune in again. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.